there. Well, about a month back, I made a video in which I took a pretty standard Risk board and I just simply spray painted them up, turned them into two quick and easy armies that could be used for games like Black Powder and that sort of thing. We got some interest. Some people quite liked looking at that, and many people talked about how they looked at the Risk models themselves and thought about maybe painting them up as armies. And as I said in that previous video, I did this, but I did this with a very sort of abstracted view, the idea being that they are just two generic armies. They're not of any specific time period or any specific place, but they'll do the job in order to actually play games. That was the idea of this sort of thing. However, I got these things at Christmas time. It was a bit of a gift voucher type situation, which is what made me feel not too bad about cutting up the board game. But initially, my idea for painting Risk figurines began with this. So this is an old Risk game that I purchased. No, I think it was given to me also as a Christmas present many years ago. I would have been a younger teenager when I received this. I remember around this time, myself and my cousins, we quite enjoyed many games of Risk. Their copy of it on a family camping trip thing once. Quite a lot of fun. And so I thought I'd get my own set in order to play with. However, I think I've played a grand total of one game. One game with this Risk set against me and my sister, and we didn't even finish the game. Which was quite sad, because obviously it's a nice enough game. Pretty Monopoly-esque, but you know, it's a game. It's a nice little war game. But that didn't stop me from actually playing with it. When I was younger, I would actually often use my little Risk set for my own little made-up games, little war game type things. I would line them all up on the board. I'd use the cards as sort of like buildings that these soldiers could hide in. And I would just make up games of various sorts, like, you know, I'd have every second dude fall over, or it might involve the dice, I don't know. But basically made my own little pretend war games when I was younger. Anyway, this then sat in a cupboard gathering dust, as things tend to do when you leave them alone for too long. And recently, though, I was thinking about maybe I should try and find myself a whole bunch of Napoleonic Black Powder figures, like, you know, 7mm, or maybe the recent Warlord epic scale mini dudes. I'll get some of them and give it a go painting. I'm kind of new to the hobby painting game. But then I remembered I had this box languishing in my cupboard, unused, unloved, and I gotta be honest with you, no real chance of ever being used ever again. So I decided, well, what I could do was if I took these blokes out and I painted them instead, I would have a very quick and, most importantly, almost free little mini 6mm-ish army. Just like that, overnight, real quick. So that's what I intended to do. However, recently we have moved house, hence why the setup is a little boxy, shall we say. And when we moved house, this was put into storage. I'm like, great, I want to use this in order to paint up. I got impatient, I used the voucher, I painted up the other set. But now that we are unpacking and I've finally found this box, I thought what I might do is I might actually paint these guys up a bit better, beyond just the spray paint and two different colors for generic armies. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with like just a little, I don't know, a little half battalion, a little squad or something like that. Maybe just some infantry soldiers, some cavalry, some artillery, and just give them a go, paint them up and see what they look like. And this time what I'll do is I'll actually paint them up in closer to historical colors. Let me show you what these little guys look like. Okay, so here they are. So these are the, like I said, mid-2000s-ish Risk set. Obviously, they've gone for that, was it tricorn or cocked hat? I don't know what the difference is between the two. Era of Black Powder fighting. Essentially, I think they're meant to look a bit like American War of Independency. That's kind of the vibe they're going for with these dudes. And as you can see, unlike some recent Risk set, like if you have a closer look at my other video and the little Risk dudes in that, the quality of these little guys is actually a little bit higher. You still got the occasional mold line going on, absolutely, not be surprised, I guessed. But you actually can see more of their face. They've actually even sort of cast in a little bit more of their sort of straps and belting and all that sort of stuff, their backpacks and so on. Now, don't get me wrong, not the best, and also the level of consistency, well, isn't. But nonetheless, as you can see, there's a bit more detail on these guys, hence why I was interested in painting them up. We've obviously also got the cannon, which is great, because not only do we have the cannon with a dude standing next to it, but we also have flags that we'll be able to make use of, which is excellent. And we have the cavalry. Much more dynamic pose. The other ones that I made had muskets, so they're more like, I don't know, mounted dragoons or they're just soldiers with guns. Whereas these guys, they've got their swords flashing, which is what we want. Nothing like a soldier flashing his sword. All right, so these are the minis that I intend to paint up. I've never really painted anything in detail on this scale before, so I will be taking advice. Who was it? There was a bloke. I'll put his actual name of the channel up on the screen. I believe it was Storm of Steel or something like that. I watched some of his useful videos talking about painting at 6 mils, and I'll try and take their advice. I intend to paint these guys dark and then bring out the colors as instructed. And I'm also going to paint them probably not so much in the sort of War of Independence style, but rather to sort of match my pre-existing little risk set, so that way they can be interchangeable, and I'll do up a whole bunch of these and maybe in time bring the other risk set in with more realistic paint jobs, but with red and white, to be specifically that sort of continental British versus that continental French from like pre-revolution, 7 Years' War, that type of era. I have no idea the French wearing white coats was more of a sort of Indian War in the North Americas type thing, or if that's what they actually wore in Europe during the 7 Years' War. I'm not sure, but I'm sure they'll look nice having our little two armies, sort of old school Royal Imperial French versus our red coats is kind of the idea. So I'll cut to a bit of a time lapse. I'll base coat these dudes in a dark color, and then I'll bring up the colors to make them look nice and pretty. But anyway, wish me luck. Let's see how we go. Okay, well, that's enough for me. Here they are, the little wrist dudes all painted up with a bit more effort. Not as much effort as some put in, which is, you know, shame on me, but not on them. I didn't exactly do what the Storm of Steel guy suggested, starting with black as the base coat. I figured, because I'm going to make them all red and all white, that's just going to add extra layers on top of what's already there. So I thought, stuff it, we'll take the risk and we'll experiment and just go with all spray painted red, all spray painted white, and then paint on top of that, which I think's turned out all right. I'm pretty happy with it. I just went over it with a dark wash to give it those shadows, which painted all black would normally give it. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the results. So we have ourselves our little British soldiers. Like I said, they're the soldiers roughly from the 7-Year War type period. So they're not quite hitting up the white yet. There's a lot more yellow going on. And ultimately did take the big advice from actual 6mm painters. Everything is more or less just dots and lines. That was probably the best advice that they gave. You don't really try and paint them per se. You just go across and put a little yellow dot on each sleeve, a little skin tone on the face. You really just keep, less is more basically the strategy. Yes, a few lines like along the guns with the silver. But yeah, less is more basically, and it really does come out pretty well, at least I think so. So yeah, there's my little Risk British dudes. And here is my version of the French from the 7 Years War. As you can see, there's that little bit of, what's it called? That little bit of extra plastic line from the molding that sticks out. So the consistency with the soldiers, the quality between them obviously is not great. Risk did not intend for these things to be painted, and they're meant to be seen in mass as a part of the game. So there is some quality issues, especially on the French faces. I don't know what it was. I used yellow dudes for this. All the red ones, which I used for the British soldiers, were pretty okay. But some of these yellow dudes painted as French, their faces were really just globs, and it was kind of a bit annoying. But again, these things are meant to be seen en masse. And so I'm not too stressed by that. En masse, the result for me, I think, is just good enough. We obviously have our little horse cavalry as well. I just did the British ones for now. I chose to go black and that sort of grey spotted looking horse. The horses were probably where I did the most painting. So I kind of had to pay a bit more attention and paint a bit more extra layers. But anyway, they turned out okay. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. So yeah, as far as their bases go, just a little bit of wood. Got some sand, some local sand from our beaches, because again, one of the benefit of living on the east coast of Australia is our beach sand is pretty good. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with the results. So there you go. So this is what you can achieve if you get your little Risk soldiers and you put a little bit more time in them. You actually think about how you want to make them look a bit more like soldiers from whatever period. Obviously, you could do this, make these guys sort of blue and red to do sort of the American War of Independence. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you will see me again in the future. Goodbye.